Can you fly, Bobby? Welcome to the Hey You Guys podcast. We're your hosts, Liam and Rob. And this week we covered 1987's Robocop.
Yeah. I mean, much darker than it should be for a film which is about a robot cop.
Yes.
A film where, just be clear, that up until like the last minute, Murphy was actually going to be called Robert, until they were like, wait a minute, everyone's going to call this Robert Cop.
Robert Cop.
Which is, I mean, it's actually a film that Paul Verhoeven, he actually passed over the script first time.
He read the first page and chucked it in the bin, didn't he?
Well, you can see why a lot of people would. Like, you hear about it. It's like a robot cop cleaning up Detroit City in the near future. Or the distant, like 1997, the distant future, one of those. But it's only as it goes itself, it kind of reveals itself to be this kind of satirical, dark, something of a masterpiece of 80s cinema.
Well,
and it's not clear from the synopsis at all, put it that way.
It's funny you say about the satire, because I had this written down. I've already said to you, I wrote down that it's a testament to the general preposterousness of the 1980s action movie that most people took Robocop seriously when it first came out. Because if you read a lot of things, a lot of people took this film seriously when it took them a long time to realize this is satire at its highest level.
The worrying thing is that a lot of the satire feels dangerously and worryingly on the nose in 2021 or 2021. That's an Americanism. I do apologize. But you have, and let's be clear, the satire is immediately, there's two layers of satire in this film. The first one is very much upfront, and it couldn't be any more upfront. The film opens after the title card, the very 80s title card with Robocop and the music and stuff. It goes straight into a number of adverts and news reports.
Yeah.
And yes, they are absurd, but are they a million miles away from what you would see on Fox News or GB News in the UK now? I'm not sure that they are. And even like the heart transplant adverts, I'm like, I've seen those adverts in America, especially those kind of local adverts. You know, they're ridiculous as standard. So you've got that level of satire, which should be ridiculous, should have been a red flag to everyone to say this is satire, this isn't the real world. But as I said, even now in 2021, feels a little bit too familiar for my taste.
The one that,
but they're not. Oh, sorry, carry on.
Sorry, the one that gets me, you were on about all the adverts and stuff, is the family having a really lovely games night
of Nukem.
Playing Toxic War or Nuclear War or something.
I think it's literally just called Nukem. I just remember the kid shouting something like, Pakistan are invading my border, or something stupid like that. And it's just like, dad nukes his son.
Yeah.
But again, you look at that game, you're like, yeah, it's just the great thing about Paul Verhoeven's film, and it's the reason to a certain extent, he feels auteuristic. That feels a little bit like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Very much, when you look at his work, he has that auteur sense, and a lot of that comes from his satiricals. I mean, there's three things you get with Paul Verhoeven. You get ultra-violence, which you get in this film in abundance. You get satire, and you also usually get a lot of sex. Admittedly, there's not a ton of sex in this film, and that's not for Paul Verhoeven not trying. He wanted a lot more sex in this film, and he was actually dissuaded from, adding a bunch of 80s style sex movies like Lethal Weapon and just having random titties flying about.
Yeah, well, he got away with that by adding a lot of cleavage in that I'd buy that for $1 TV show within a film.
Yeah, there's cleavage there. There's the unnecessary 80s Coke party with the two girls and having Coke off her tits and stuff like that. It's like, it's still got those little hints. It's not full Paul Verhoeven in the sexual department.
Well, you mean Showgirls? Come on, say it.
Rather his latest film. God, what the hell's the name of it? His 2021 nun film. It's called Benedetto. It's set in the 17th century. It's about very erotic nuns from 17th century Italy, and it's currently under a lot of scrutiny because of a sex scene, including a wooden statue of the Virgin Mary used as a sex toy. So yeah, that's the kind of level that he potentially gets to. We don't get that in that film, in Robocop, sorry, but what we do get is this quintessential ultra-violence. And obviously the satire is, when you think of Paul Verhoeven and satire, I mean, the two films which stand out for me, the most kind of on the nose, again, to use that term, this and Starship Troopers. Yeah, which really do feel like bedfellows in terms of tone. But as I was saying, you do get that like overt satire right up top. But outside of that, you get the more subtle satire. You know, the fact that all this stuff about OCP owning and operating a privatized Detroit police department.
Yeah.
That's kind of layered throughout the whole film, and you can ignore that stuff, that whole commentary about the privatization of the Detroit police force, or if you just choose into it. And the great thing about this film, like a lot of 80s films, it's only an hour and 40 long. It never kind of sits on anything too long. It doesn't hit you over the head with anything. But as I said, it's there throughout the whole film. The disparity between old Detroit and this potential new Delta City is totally mirrored between the police department and OCP Towers with its kind of executive toilets, like a fucking airport. It's absolutely ridiculous. If anything, OCP Towers, did it remind you of the building from Gremlins 2? Yes. It was, that near future kind of ridiculous, 40-story building.
Because that was like Clamp Towers or something like that, wasn't it? In Gremlins 2, Clamp something or
something ridiculous. Yeah. But you only get hints of this. There's a lot of stuff in this film which actually looks very Japanese. I thought the skyline was very Akira in many respects. You only get a few hints of it, and it's clearly a matte painting. And I know Akira the movie is released in here, like that's 88 versus 87, but the manga had already been out. And, you only have to look at the character design of Robocop and Ed 209 to know that this is hugely inspired by Japanese manga and Japanese animation, for sure.
Yeah.
It really is. But that is one of the things that obviously stands out is the I don't say monster, the robot design. I mean, when you think of the 80s and the great character and creature design, the ones that jump out are Predator, Alien, and arguably Robocop. Yeah,
well, the Robocop suit is so minimalistic. Just the design of it is iconic.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Like I was watching again. I was watching when they were designing him, and I had a few thoughts. Like I love the fact they gave him big toes.
Yeah, they totally give him big toes.
I don't understand why he needed big toes, but they gave him big toes.
It kind of looks cool, though. I mean, the design of Robocop himself was inspired by a 1982 anime. It's got a ridiculous name, The Ape Man and the First Metal Hero Space Sheriff Gavan. So, yeah, that gives you, that's about as Japanese as you get. Yeah. But if you actually remember what that is and type it in, you can, it's not even subtle. The silver and the black, it's totally the Robocop design. And, the other one you forget about, obviously Robocop's the star of the show, his name's in the title, for heaven's sake. But another absolutely iconic piece of, creature design, robot design, whatever you want to call it, is Ed 209, who I think, despite some of the slightly dodgy stop motion animation, is a genuinely scary creation. Like, he has such a great introduction with the boardroom scene.
Yes.
It's like, you have 5 seconds to comply. And it's a combination of the voice, which was the producer of the film, John Davison did the voice. The growls are actually from a jaguar. And later on, when it falls down the stairs like a pleb, it's actually a pig recording. And when you listen back, it's not even subtle. But again, that's actually based largely on a toy design from, remember Robotech? It's another anime. And Ed 209's taken largely from that. But I just thought both designs absolutely knock it out the park in completely different ways, But much.
You got to give a shout out to. I think it was a team led by Rob Bottin. Well, maybe that's why they were going to call it Robocop. You never know, but because again, it's like even down to the gun holster.
Oh, it's so cool.
You know what I mean? Yeah, it all just looks fantastic. And the weird hacking Wolverine claw that he has.
Yeah, completely unnecessary, other than the fact that it looks awesome. And they were almost like, we're going to use this to kill someone at the end of the film, for sure. It's like, he uses it briefly enough that you forget about it. And of course, it looks like he's giving everyone the middle finger, which is just double badass. But
oh, go on, sorry.
No, I'm if you're going to hack into a computer and you're a robot, there is no reason for you to have a 8-inch spike coming out of your fist. It's completely unnecessary.
How have they ever thought of when they were talking about the arm and stuff as well? And they're going, "Oh, this is his arm, and it's covered in this, and he's got 900 square foot pounds of pressure or something."
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, if he closes his knuckles, he shoots out, like you said, an 8-inch spike that can. It can hack systems. It can take out jugulars. It can.
Well, Bob was. Is it Bob? Bob Morton. He was right at the start of the film, wasn't he? It's lose the arm. You don't want the human arm. You want the robot arm. Yeah. You want the one with the ridiculous grip and the spiky hand thing. By the end, And just to be clear, I'm kind of jumping the gun a bit here. But with Murphy, then, is he basically just a robot, head to toe, but with a human brain, and basically just his skin pulled over the front of it? Because you see him when he takes off the mask later in the film, and it's just his skin kind of like grafted over the top.
I don't know if it's that or if it's like they kind of kept his head and they've wired all this shit into the back of his brain.
Yeah. It's
I mean,
just when you see...
Yeah, that's all they've kept. But I mean, I don't want to mention it. We're going to mention it more in Legacy. Mm-hmm. The piss poor remake where they decided
we have different views on this, but they decided
to keep his heart and his hand and his head. Like he's just one. Like I go with this way. I agree with Bob. Like we own him. Why would you want to keep a normal hand? You'll just bring it on.
Oh my God. Said like a true OCP employee. We own him. It all goes. I mean,
let's talk about Bob for a second.
I mean, they actually said, he's legally dead. He signed the release forms. Just like you, there are no ethical considerations here. Nope. Rob just wants the ultimate machine to protect the streets of old Detroit. Unbelievable.
And how do you protect it, right? Unless you have one of the most iconic 80s weapons. I mean, let's be fair. You've got the pulse rifle.
Yeah.
And there's this. I can't think of many more iconic.
In terms of guns, I think you've probably nailed, other than maybe Blaine's minigun in Predator.
Yeah.
That's pretty iconic. But no, I totally know what you mean. Especially as that's just a kind of pre-existing weapon. Those two... Obviously, one is sci-fi, and this one, it is based on a real gun. It's based on a 9mm Beretta, but it's heavily modified. Yeah. You can't go buy one of these off the fucking shelf.
That wasn't going to be the original gun. The original gun was actually the Desert Eagle from the Mr. Kenny uses to get fucked up by Ed 209 in the boardroom.
Oh, okay,
So that Desert Eagle was actually going to be... I just wrote it down because they called him Mr. Kenny randomly, and I wrote it down. Mr. Kenny got fucked up. Like that dude just got fucked up.
But Mr. Kenny did get fucked up. Holding Dick Jones's gun, which he holds in a box, just randomly in the boardroom.
It's always in the boardroom, like
in a box. I just need to have this Desert Eagle.
That's a Desert Eagle, and that was going to be Robocop's gun. Mm-hmm. But even though that's a bulky gun, apparently, and I think I got it in facts, but. Apparently, when he was in his Robocop gear, that gun didn't look as big as they wanted it to do in his massive Robocop hand. So Desert Eagle looked small.
Well, I mean, this is, as I said, it's a 9mm Beretta, but it is custom, modified, And they actually needed to get FBI approval to get this into the United States of America, because I think it was illegal to have it in the United States. They're like, dude, we need it for this film. And it totally pays off, because obviously it looks the part, because it's this big, huge, ridiculous handgun, but it's the sound. And it's the fact that it's like a semi-automatic handgun, which is so rare. And it makes a fantastic sound. And the other thing you've probably noticed, it never runs out of bullets.
Yeah,
Infinite bullets.
Plus, it's magic. It needs no reloading whatsoever.
It is 100% a magic gun, but but it's a great opening to this film. I mean, you get thrown straight in the deep end with Murphy. There's no major introduction to him as a character, and again, this is all about the speed and pace of this movie.
It's sad for Murphy, but the fact that he's coming from, so he's been transferred because OCP are now just moving everyone because they've owned the cops and everything. They're just moving people. So he was in what sounded like a cushy job somewhere else, and he gets moved to, I guess, in old Detroit. He's like, you got me, man. OCP are moving everybody. And that guy had probably the worst first day anybody can have.
Probably. 100%. The one thing I'll say is that in those brief scenes, because you only see him as Murphy, real life Murphy, for a very small number of scenes, a very small amount of time. But Peter Weller, it is Peter Weller, isn't it?
It's Peter Weller, yeah.
I almost said Paul Weller. He makes such an impact. As soon as he walks through the door, he's got that fresh face, that winning smile, that great shirt. He has immediate chemistry.
As soon as I saw him walk through, I went, Liam's going to bring that shirt up. Liam's going to love that shirt.
It's a great shirt.
Yeah.
And all they do is a few lines. And he is married, but the first thing, because my wife was watching the film with me as well, she was like, so how long is it until those two fuck? I was like, you obviously don't remember this film, because don't get me wrong, the chemistry suggests they're going to fuck. The next scene suggests that's probably not going to happen, because...
It's probably one of the deleted scenes where Robocop pulls out his 9-inch penis attachment.
Yeah, there is that. Well, there is a surprisingly impactful penis scene in this film. I'd never really thought about it before. But basically, within a few minutes, you have the chase on the freeway. You have the famous line as you put the top, "Can you fly, Bobby?" And we'll get to. I want to call him Red because I always think it was Red.
Yeah, because of that
Clarence,
show, yeah.
Yeah, but we'll get to Clarence Bodiger in a bit. But that sequence where Murphy, let's be clear, gets absolutely fucked up, is horrendous, is because his backup couldn't help but look at that guy's dick. She has him dead to rights, and he turns around and he's got his hands up. He's like, can I put this away? And the screen, like the camera just stays with her. Like, can you not look at his dick? Can you? Can you manage it? She eventually looks at his dick. Yeah. He knocks a gun away, knocks off the side. She's taken out of the equation. Backup is gone. And that's why Murphy ends up in the position he's in. It's because Lewis couldn't help but look at some dick. Unbelievable.
And that's what I wrote.
Unbelievable.
I literally wrote, he knew she would love a peek.
That is exactly what he does. He is basically betting his life, his freedom on that cop, just being like, listen, I've got to look. It's hanging out. I have to see it. Like, I don't mean that in a sexual way. Like she just loves cock. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying that weird thing where it's like, if a dude's standing in front of you and his penis is hanging out, you're like, it's hard not to have a glance because it's just weird.
I suppose even going down the PG version, it's like saying don't look down. Don't look down. So just anything. You tell somebody not to do something, they're going to do it. You know what I mean?
Don't look at my dick.
Yeah.
Like, see how long this lasts.
Yeah. And that is one of the best versions of a Mexican standoff I have ever seen. Just staring at each other and then just have a peek at a dick. And then he manages to take her out. And then you get to Murphy just taking the one guy out, capturing Emil, who I've never seen him be. Well, I've seen Robocop a few times, but Emil is actually one of the guards in Shawshank Redemption. That's my link to him. One of the guys on the roof when Andy Dufresne is about to get thrown off.
Yeah, I don't know him from much. I think he was in ER as well. That was the other thing I knew him from.
I wouldn't know about that. Never seen it yet. And then he gets surrounded by the cast of characters. Yeah.
But most pertinently, Red or Clarence Bodiger, he is one of the most unpleasant screen presences of cinema, full stop. But he is horrendous.
Best real name ever. Kurtwood Smith.
Kurtwood Smith's a hell of a fucking name.
Awesome.
And I think it speaks to the performance because you see him, and if you just saw a still of him, like with the hair, he's got the giant noggin. Again, at this point, I think most people would have probably only seen him in maybe Rambo 3 or something, perhaps.
Yeah.
And he looks like he looks like a college professor, but he is so unpleasant. He's so belligerent, like right from that opening shot in the truck, when somebody fucks up, he starts kicking the back of the chair and you think, oh, he's going to be a belligerent, fun bad guy. Then of course he throws one of his own men out of the back of a moving truck, but it's only a prelude to or precursor to what happens next. And the, what a friend of mine, Ronald, refers to now, and what I always think of as the scene is, one of the most unpleasant scenes in mainstream movie history. I've told the story before about when I grew up, I was finally allowed to go and watch, 18 movies when I was far too young, 10, 11. And this was one of the big five when I first started renting those films. So it was Die Hard, Aliens, Predator, Commando, this, and maybe one or two others. So 5, 7, whatever. And I was fine with the violence. I was fine with sex. I wasn't really impacted, even at a young age, by these violent things, which probably speaks more to my character than anything else. But this was one of the scenes that I found tough to watch from a young age, was the, let's be clear, torture scene of Murphy. It is rough. And the extended version, which is on the Blu-ray, is fucking brutal, man.
When he gets... After they took his hand off, like you said, no.
Which is so grim.
Yeah.
When they blow his hand off.
It's just like a bag of meat that just gets... and it just... But then...
It's bad.
And then he's like, he's just looking at his hand, like, oh, my hand.
Yeah.
And then
Blood spurting
Clarence just
everywhere.
turns around and goes, he's all yours. And then the guy is just littered with shotgun, semi-automatic, fully automatic, just round.
I mean, it's almost ridiculous because he survives. But I guess the idea is that because he's wearing a bulletproof vest,
Yeah.
it's just hurting a lot. But in fairness, the first thing they do is blow his fucking right arm off with the shotgun.
Yeah, because they take his hand off, and then his arm just goes flying after that.
And then they just shoot the shit out of him.
The pop in the head as well. When Clarence just says, right, we got to go, and just pops him in the head. Like the way, even like for the 80s, the way that looks, the visceralness of it, as it just pops out the back of his head. And then
bad news.
You get to the next scene then where they're trying to save his life, and you're thinking, back of dude's head just popped off. Like, how
it's crazy though. The fact that he is still alive is almost ridiculous. But and as you say, speaking to the violence, like I'm not sure if any film has used squibs as well as or as liberally as this film has.
Yeah.
Like, and it goes back to what was the name of the guy in the boardroom who got shot up?
Mr. Kenny.
Like he nearly gets shot in half. Like, you know, this film sets out its stall early. He doesn't just get blown away by Ed 209. It feels like his chest is going to tear off. It looks so fucking gross.
He has that perfect movement as well when he's getting shot, where his body is just going. Oh, it's fantastic.
It's oddly rewarding in its own bizarre, dark way, I suppose. But there's nothing rewarding or pleasant about the way. I think maybe if he died straight away, but the fact that he's there screaming and just getting, and let's be clear, it's like a Nazi-style firing squad.
Yeah.
And it's actually mirrored later in the film in quite a dark way when Robocop again faces another firing squad, but this time cops who have been told that you know he's dangerous and he's get shot down. And that scene is really, rewatching it in particular, I know you don't get the blood because it's Robocop, but that scene is dark as fuck as well. There's some really dark stuff in this film, but I don't think anything quite matches the firing squad from earlier in the film. It's bad.
You go to that, like, just not just the violence as well for darkness, but it's after, again, we keep saying his name now, after Mr. Kenny pretty much just gets fucked up.
Yeah.
You've got a couple of people worried about that going on. And then you've got Bob, who just runs up and he's like, Ed 209 screwed the pooch, but my Robocop dude is ready to go. You know, so like it's literally just the guy you actually just come up with in a lift with is is lying there just gone. And the first thing you've got to think of is, this is my time.
Well, that's one of the things about this film. As much as it's about traditional street level crime, it's also it's about corporate brown nosing and double crossing. And again, like right from the off, Bob is just that. You know, you think of obviously what's his name? What's his name? Dick Jones as being the bad guy, obviously. But Bob Morton, he's a fucking slime bag as well. He's horrendous.
When it comes to OCP, aside from the guy who says it tastes like baby food, he's good. I think he rocks up in some of the sequels, and he ends up becoming a bit evil himself.
Oh, it does. Don't worry about the sequels.
But in this one, he is kind of baby face. Like he, you know, even though he's an executive by the sounds of it, he's not willing to step on people's nuts to get over them.
And it's weird because the nicest or the most I guess on the surface at least the most pleasant character is actually the guy in charge, the guy who's referred to only as the old man. The actor is Dan O'Herlihy. I've probably absolutely slain his fucking name there. But he's actually quite relatively benevolent in terms of, certainly comparatively. And obviously the big part is that corporate kind of struggle between Dick Jones and Bob Morton. And those two, like, obviously Dick Jones is the worst of the two. He is a proper wrong'un. But Bob Morton's, you know, he's not someone to root for. He's a bit of a cunt.
But Bob Morton is willing to not piss on you if you're on fire just to get ahead. But
100%.
But it doesn't look like he's willing to hire some cocaine dealing, cop killing person to get his way. Whereas Dick Jones, literally anything he can do, he will do to get ahead.
Yeah. There's the difference. Like Bob Morton's like the worst example of traditional corporate skullduggery. He's an asshole. He's willing to step on people. He doesn't give a fuck about the people he sees who are below him, which is pretty much everyone. But Dick Jones, of course, is a more traditional, evil, bad guy. Like you said, the fact that he signs up Clarence Boddicker, the fact that he sends an assassin not only to kill Bob, but also has a little message on him on CD, which I thought was fantastic. I'm not sure how smart that was. You know, if you're sending a message to say to the person that you're going to murder and you put it on CD, like, I know this is 1987, but someone probably should have told him that CDs are pretty easy to copy. You know, in case Clarence Boddicker wants to have leverage on you, he's got this literal CD of you saying, this is why I'm going to kill you. This is who I've sent to kill you. All this nonsense. But yeah.
That murder scene had me questioning a few things. And I'd like to see if you thought the same. So Clarence Boddicker knocks the door and Bob thinks it's the champagne. So he answers the door, he gets pushed back. He's holding a gun, sees the two women and just says, bitches, leave.
Yeah.
So they get up, they leave, and they go, call me later, Bob, or whatever it is, and they're gone, right? They've seen a guy with a gun, threaten
It's
Bob.
Detroit.
Detroit,
it's fine.
Well, that's absolutely fine. So he's already sent two witnesses out, and they're going to pick this dude out of a lineup anyway. Okay, so because, I mean, look at him. You're going to pick... He's glasses and forehead.
Yeah.
But the next thing for him to do then is put a fucking silencer on his gun.
Totally unnecessary considering what he does next, i.e. blow the fucking place up with a grenade.
Put a silencer on his gun, shot him in the kneecap. Now, the only thing I can think of why he's done that is because he is trying to buy time before somebody does call the cops if they hear it.
Yeah, that's all I could think.
But he's already sent two witnesses who the first thing they should be doing is going, dude just barged into this guy who was about to fuck with a gun. Maybe you should check this out.
Yeah, I know what you mean. And I thought the exact same thing. The only thing I'll say is that, he even says it, is that he's protected because of obviously his relationship with Dick Jones.
Yeah.
And he goes as far as literally walking into OCP Towers. He hits on the girl at the desk, who I think is actually Paul Verhoeven's wife.
Yes.
And he literally rolls into OCP. So to say, like, you know, the level of confidence he's got in regards to his level of protection, you can't get any more confident than just rolling into OCP Towers and going straight to the big man's fucking, you know, his office at the top, which speaks to his power as well. Because you would think he probably doesn't want to be kind of seen with a known criminal, but doesn't seem to fucking bother him. But again, that I think speaks to the level of crime and underhanded kind of nefarious goings on in Detroit and obviously OCP in particular. But yeah, it's still a questionable scene for sure. But yeah, once we get past that, I mean, the introduction to Robocop himself, which happens, you know, really early in the film, is just an array of like great little scenes, you know, audio clues, a lot of first person stuff, like the kind of transition, I suppose, from like a live Murphy as he's dying, because a lot of it is shot in first person as he's on the hospital bed, and those the
trauma team are actual real doctors.
Yeah, and it feels like a legitimate scene. Again, it's super gross, and the camera's right in there. It's either right in on him or it's from first person, and then it goes straight into that first person of him waking up or being created as Robocop. And there's some great stuff there. Some great stuff. I mean, the only shame is that at the New Year's Eve party, we never got to see Robocop wearing the king's hat, which he puts on him. But what can you do?
I had to think, as they were doing those scenes and you kept seeing it from Murphy's perspective, when you see from Murphy's perspective, I always thought, well, I say always thought, it was actually this time around. I never actually thought about it before. His vision. They thought they got all this money. They're doing like he's a robot. Do you know what I mean? They turned a man into a cyborg. Yeah, we're going to say cyborg a lot more this episode.
Yeah. I'm gonna start kind of shoehorning that into every episode now.
But 100%. My God, his vision was grainy as fuck. Like every now and then you see him from his perspective, you're thinking, mate, you could have cleared that. I mean, I'm not expecting HD from 1987, but come on.
The thing is, it's made worse now because I'm sure, same as me, is that I'm watching this film in HD. Yeah. So those scenes obviously look grainy. But again, it's just robot sight, isn't it? It's like when you see the Terminator and he's kind of like, it literally looks like he's looking through. Do you remember oh fuck, it was like the VR headset that Nintendo did back in the 90s. I'm not sure if you remember that.
The second, the one that goes on one eye.
No. It was like a full head thing. Like Nintendo did a full VR headset in the early mid 90s, I think it was, and it was one of their few major flops. There was only like a handful of games for it, but if you see through it, everything is in red with kind of wireframe graphics, and that's what the Terminator's vision looks like. And in fairness to Murphy and the Terminator, it's better than that. It's like real life, but just grainier and with slightly shitty video playback.
That's the red.
Yeah. Sorry. I mean, we're great for podcasting here where he's holding up a picture of the Nintendo VR. But yeah.
If anybody wants to see what I'm looking at, literally just Google Nintendo VR headset and you'll get to the Virtual Boy.
Virtual Boy. I just couldn't remember the name of it. It is horrifying. Like, it doesn't matter. We're not going to make this a Nintendo Virtual Boy podcast. But yeah, his vision's a bit shit. But you've got to sell it as, well, it's robot vision, so I'm going to allow it.
I don't know. It took me out of the film. I mean, yes, this took me out of the film. Set in the far future of Detroit, where a robot is now a police officer taking out drug dealing criminals working for a multinational corporation that owns the police that the police officer's working for. But no, the vision is what took me out of the film.
That is going to be it. But in fairness, once we get to this point, the movie starts clipping along pretty quick. Like the introduction to Robocop himself, like visually, it's quick, but it does just enough to be like, oh, it doesn't really work if you've seen the poster, but it does enough in terms of like great audio design and little hints when you get the police going, oh, super cop or whatever, and they're trying to run around and you get like little hints of what he looks like.
You just see him from the back and you first see him through the frosted glass. So and the silhouette of him, but you've got that kudunk as he's walking.
The sounds. That is the best bit about, like, obviously when people think about it, they think of he turns, then his head turns and but the great use of sound is really in the way he walks. Yeah. Because it sounds so impactful. It sounds like he's like walking into the concrete, doesn't it? Yeah. And you're like, this guy's a big motherfucker,
Well, that's what the big toe's for.
That's what the big toe for, is give you that introduction, But I mean, obviously you get the great scene then with it tastes like baby food, where I'm not sure how many people are aware of what baby food tastes like, but, whatever.
Also, if something is coming out of a machine like that...
And looks like shit. It looks like shit.
Is your first instinct to put your finger in it and go, well, actually, a lot of people would test it.
There's something about the way he sucks his finger as well, where he's just a little bit too into it. I don't know what it is, but anyway. But it's not long before we're off to the races and Robocop is out cleaning house. Basically, he's like, there's no test period. He's sitting in a chair and they go, the 3 directives, you can follow a pen. All right, can you just go out and kill a bunch of bad guys or at least arrest them? And he is off to races. And there's that great kind of collection of mini scenes of him going around fighting crime. There's 3. There's the fuck you guy.
Yes. Who was actually the stunt coordinator of the film.
Yeah, and he was only supposed to say fuck you. Oh no, fuck me. Fuck me, isn't it? It's like, fuck me, fuck me. He was only supposed to say that once. Yeah. But for some reason he kept saying it. Like, everyone found it so funny that they kept it in the film. And of course, it led to 1,000,001 hilarious ITV dubbings in like the mid-90s. Where he's like, fluff me, or fudge me, or whatever nonsense it was.
I'm pretty sure you forget me once. Forget me.
Jesus Christ. But you've got that one. And then you've got obviously the super memorable dick shot one, which is horrifying. But those guys, what is up with those two in hair? Like, they're cutting off her hair, and then like, oh, she's got more hair down there. And I'm like, who are these weird rapists who like to just cut girls' hair off? They're just the worst.
I'm not going to actually go nowhere near you until I've given you a good old haircut first.
Good old haircut.
Yeah, above and below.
Yeah. Well, that is the thing. The only thing I can say is that it makes them so gross that by the time Robocop shoots the guy in the dick, you're pretty happy. You're like, you had that coming, dude.
Initially, it wasn't going to be the dick, was it? It was going to be past her ear and just kill the rapist.
Traditional,
But Paul Verhoeven actually saw that every time she was standing like legs akimbo.
Yeah.
A little bit. So he's like, just shoot me in the dick. And Ed Niemeyer, the writer, he loved it so much he put it into the script.
Well, it makes for a much more
What I will
impactful shot, no pun intended.
Yeah. Bear with me 1 second. What I will say about that scene, and I'm not going to go too much into it. I think me and you have spoken about this previously, is if anyone's listening to this now and they want to see that scene turned up to 100, Google Robocop remake scene 27 and watch the weirdest 3 minutes and 42 seconds of your life.
Well, what's that?
Have we not spoken about this?
I don't think so.
I thought we had this conversation. Oh my God, you need to Google this shit as well.
Yeah, I need to Google the shit.
It's that scene. I could have sworn we've already had this conversation.
Maybe we haven't, I forgot, but...
So they've done... Well, no, you would not have forgotten this. It's just... It's a random... Like, again, it's a piss take. But it's literally Robocop shoots the guy in the dick. And a bunch of other street criminals come out of the woodwork. It basically ends with about 100 people getting shot in the dick until you have a super drugged up dick monster guy that loves getting shot in the dick.
That sounds like a pretty fucked up video, in fairness. So
it's the weirdest 3 minutes and 42 seconds of your life, but you need to watch. Yeah. So, Robocop remake scene 27. After this, I want you to go and watch that.
Okay, I mean, I'm not sure if I want to watch it, but I'm going to, all the same. I mean, it's just, how can I not after that sales
I could have sworn you've seen it. I could have sworn it was shared with you already. I feel like I've let you down. I feel like...
it's quite all right. It's, I'm finding out now this is the perfect time for it, the Robocop podcast. What's the other one? Oh, the other one's Miller, the terrorist guy, who, let's be clear, is very much like Trump. He's like, what does he want? He's like, I want to recount. He wants his old job back. When people jerk him off, he kills them. It's like, dude, you sound a lot like Donald Trump in this scene. And, if only Robocop could turn up and punch Trump through a fucking window. I don't want to turn this into a political podcast, but, it wouldn't be the end of the world. But yeah, those like 3 scenes. They're like all like their own little mini action scenes. Yeah. It's just like straight away, Robocop set loose on Detroit. And the one thing I will say is, obviously he spends a fair bit of that time in the car, but supposedly he was too big to get in the suit.
I got that.
So sorry to jump the gun, but every time he's in the car, it's actually Peter Weller sitting in the top half is the Robocop suit, but in the bottom half, he's wearing his underwear. Much like, not the best reason, but Sean Connery did the same thing in The Last Crusade, when he's sitting in the blimp with Harrison Ford, and he was so hot. He said he found it so he did the scene where he above he's wearing a suit or whatever, but supposedly he was wearing just his underwear below the table. But of course, it's even more ridiculous when it's Robocop and he's got the suit, and it's almost like they've overcompensated for that, because only when I found out that obviously he was naked, well, not naked, but underwear from the waist down. How many scenes there are in this film where Robocop is getting into or getting out of a car?
Yeah.
Obviously, they only stop just before he gets in or gets out. But there must be about 15 scenes in this film where Robocop is getting in.
They always kind of started with his foot is just hitting the floor just as he's getting out.
And if you want an idea of the overcompensation in that regard, have a look at the poster. It's Robocop getting out of a car the fucker can't fit in. It's ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, but the door is basically blocking his legs and his waist.
Yeah.
So he could be wearing the Robocop boot underneath, and the the picture could be he's in his underwear as well. You never know.
Yeah, it could be. But yeah, I mean, once you get through those, obviously there's some other stuff, but we need to start getting to this because we've got like a million facts for this as well.
So what I will say, but what I did like is after the introduction of all that, you get the next scene of Robocop. Then is him meeting the kids at school. And they go, what do you want to say of all the kids out there? Stay out of trouble. Like that's his introduction. Like this guy has gone and torn people a new one. And the next thing is they just sent this massive robot to go to a school.
In fairness, the most effective way for him to get his message across is if they actually had a video of him shooting that guy in the dick. Because if you showed that to kids, you'd be like, I'm never getting in trouble. Yeah. Because Robocop does not fuck around.
My targeting system is shit, or I will hit any size dick.
Any size, it's getting rinsed. And this is...
Again, Robocop remake, scene 27.
Oh, okay. Well, this is a semi-automatic modified Beretta. It's I only need to be in the general area. All your shit is getting fucked up.
And also, I don't have to reload. Magic gun. So
magic gun, of course. Yeah. Of course. And never is that more apparent than the next major scene, the warehouse scene, where obviously you have that great intro where he's kicking in the door, and it's just like all the like, you know, the crime lords are there and stuff. It's like, and you know, you get the great, as you said earlier, the fantastic silhouette, and then he comes in and he must shoot 1,000 bad guys, and he never ever reloads.
It's not just that. You're kind of misselling how he's shooting them, because he's not just shooting, and he's not doing it in a traditional robotic style. He is literally underarming it, over shouldering it. You know,
he's a show off.
Moving. He really is.
He's a fucking show off. And the thing is, one thing I will say about that scene before Robocop shows up is just how fancy this Coke warehouse is. Like, the Coke is being kind of distributed into these fancy little glass vials, so cute. And I'm not sure the name of the guy who's running the Coke warehouse. The other,
his nice glass of vino.
Yeah, his glass of red and stuff like that. And I love that. And again, Clarence just being gross as
Sal,
usual.
Wasn't it? It was Sal.
Sal, yeah. When Clarence sticks his 2 fingers in his wine and then sniffs it up his nose, just like another one of those examples of Clarence Bobbitt just being the fucking worst.
Sal, the Tigers are playing. I never miss a game.
He's such a slimebag. And this is Red we're talking about, beloved Red from the Adventure Show. Unbelievable. But yeah, when he does rock up then and absolutely clean house, that's probably maybe the most iconic action scene of the entire film. Like, I just like, when I think of Robocop, that's the scene where, even though there's coke and stuff involved, I think that's the reason that a cartoon gets made. That's why there are so many sequels. That's why, you know, when you think of the 80s, one of the first things you think of is Robocop. You know, it's like, you don't think about Murphy being absolutely torn to pieces by a death squad. You think of Robocop showing up and cleaning the house against the bad guys.
Yeah. Well, that 100%. And sending a guy into a vat of toxic waste. But we'll talk more about that when we get to the end.
Well, the thing is, we'll get to that pretty quick, because, I mean, what happens after that? You have the warehouse fight scene.
Yeah, he arrests Clarence, and then Clarence is released.
Yeah, and obviously, Clarence, you know, the great Dick Jones, he's the number 2 man OCP, Dick Jones. And, you know, then he obviously goes sees Dick Jones, and there's the famous Directive 4, you know, don't fuck with OCP executives. And then there's the slightly visually ropey stop motion animation fight between Ed 209 and Robocop, but it's still pretty cool.
Before that fight, though, we have to go back to the sliminess of Dick Jones. The fact that he knew, because he didn't control the Robocop program, sooner or later it's probably going to come back to bite him in the ass, because he's using Clarence as his own personal game to beat.
Yeah, well, he's a wrong and back to front.
So he's literally just gone, do you know what we need to do? We need to add a magic directive where you can't harm OCP executives. Like, it's not harm anyone who works for OCP. Like, executives could give 2 shits about anyone lower than him. But
no.
He's just used the word executive, so he's safe, because he knew sooner or later Robocop was going to come back for him. Like, that guy is always thinking.
Oh yeah, and you've got to be, where if you're kind of as dodgy and slimy as him, you've got, you know, a million ways this could go wrong. But you know, he's got every base covered in veins. And then
got the stop motion fight scene between Robocop and Ed 209.
It's a weird one, because it looks, obviously, there are moments when it looks slightly ropey, but I keep going to the fact that Ed 209 is a legitimately scary creation. Like, you just think, fuck, I would not want Ed 209, you know, on my case. And it's that combination of, it's this amazing fight scene between them, and, it looks a bit ropey, and it ends pretty quickly because Ed 209 can't deal with stairs. Like, that is it. Like, Robocop doesn't do anything amazing. He doesn't outsmart Ed 209. He literally just goes down the stairs, looks around and goes, wait a minute, I don't think he can get down the stairs. And Ed 209 does the job for him by falling down the stairs and literally screaming like a pig.
Again, with satire and everything we've talked about on this film, that's the comic relief. Ed 209 is the comic relief in this film. You haven't got the plucky sidekick. You haven't got the weird captain who makes you laugh or anything like that.
Ed 209 is the...
Ed 209 is the comic relief in this film.
Although you do have, admittedly, and we haven't mentioned it, this film does have your quintessential angry black police chief, like all 80s cop movies. I mean, in fairness, he is a sergeant, isn't he? It's Robert DeQuee, who plays Sergeant Reed, and he is always angry. He may not be the police chief, he might be a sergeant instead, but he is black, and you better believe he's fucking angry.
He's the one everyone's looking up to, so yeah. And my God, that guy loves to yell.
He does love to yell, bless him, in fine form for 80s police officers in high positions, as it were. But yeah, it's quite bizarre, the idea of Ed 209 being the comic relief, given what he does earlier in the film and the fact that it is quite a scary creation. But as you say, when he can't get downstairs and the sound effect of him in trouble is a squealing pig, you're like, yeah, it's hard to argue with. They were pretty aware that it's a ridiculous situation to be in. Again,
we'll skip over the steel mill just for a minute, because that is the quintessential end to this movie, really. But again, talking about Ed 209, when Ed 209, or a version of Ed 209, gets his comeuppance, and then you've just got its legs just walking.
Oh, when he comes back and he's got one of those giant sniper rifles, the exploding sniper rifles.
He takes out Ed 209, he's just got his legs walking in the background. Again, comic relief.
Yeah, it is a little bit like chicken legs kind of walking around. And again, it's just, you think there's going to be this big, and I'm not sure if it's working around the limitations. Like, they know it probably looked a little bit ropey, the Robocop fighting Ed 209. So they kept it to a minimum, which I thought was wise. Like you said, that fight between the two, he shoots a few guns at him, shoots a missile at him, then he falls down the stairs, game over. The second run-in, Robocop, at this point he's Murphy, shows up, he comes out, I'm Ed 209, I'm all angry and stuff. He just shoots him and he explodes, and that's the end of it. And that is it. And it is proven to you in the end. It's like, dude, Robocop's just much better than Ed 209. He's just much better.
We've totally bypassed Murphy getting his humanity back. Humanitism? It's humanity back.
Definitely not a word.
Yeah, it is now.
Okay.
Murphy getting his humanity back. I had to, again, question, when he goes to find the house he shared with his wife and son, and he's having these memories, and he's walking in and he sees the world's best dad cup, and he sees the picture. Now, to me, the timeline for this, they said they needed 90 days once a copper popped their clogs to have a prototype. So he died, it took 3 months, and then realistically then we're about a month into he's being created and stuff. So let's say 4 months, right?
I think you're missing a period, though. I think they're saying 90 days to have a prototype, but I don't think that includes I think there's a bit of the film which you don't see, is that, like, basically where he's being made ready to go out on the streets. So I don't think
from Murphy dying to Murphy becoming Robocop, what's the time frame on that?
I'm guessing like a year or something, year or two.
All right. We'll give you.
I know what you mean. No, but I've got nothing to back. Nothing to back that up.
We'll give you a year. So after a year, he's gone to the house. They've put a robot realtor in the house. You know, they haven't cleaned any of this fucking house up, because Murphy's photo is in there. The cup is still in there. Do you know, like the bed sheets are still on there. They're trying to sell this house. They've wired up a video system of a guy trying to sell the house, but they haven't cleaned the house.
Yeah, it's like they've purposefully, like, wait, listen, I know he's dead, but I've just got a funny feeling the husband might come back in Robocop form and just want a kind of like a memory buffer. So we're just going to leave just a handful of key items dotted around the house to help him on that journey. Yeah, there's no fucking reason for those to be there at all. Whether it be 6 months, 2 years, whatever. There's no reason for them to be there other than it kind of suits the script and the narrative.
Sorry, video screen number 7, but you're the one that's going to get punched in your face as well. Well,
someone's got to get punched. But yeah, that house was surprised for a house in 1987. I looked at it, I was like, it's not bad. It's not bad, you know, like the furniture and stuff.
It up before they sold it. It's like you go in to visit a house and you got the real estate agent dressed up really nice, showing you around the house, and you go in. Ignore the chalk line of where the crackhead died. Okay.
Yeah,
we're going to clear the meth lab out of the kitchen before you sign up.
Yeah, and even if you go the more subtle end of the spectrum, and there's like a picture of Peter or Murphy on the wall and the best dad, you go, well, what's that? You go, oh yeah, they used to live there. He's dead now, murdered pretty brutally, but don't worry about that.
Did you just call him Peter Murphy? Did you just put 2?
No.
Yeah.
I don't think so.
You just said Peter Murphy. I'm sure you did.
I am not going to write that off. I'm going to hope I didn't, but there is every possibility that I said Peter Murphy. So let's just keep fucking moving along.
Moving on. So let's get to the steel mill then.
Yeah. So he's found his humanity, and now obviously the big thing is he wants to get the bad uns. You know, he wants his revenge, and it is at this point revenge. There's no two ways about it. And one of the best things, I mean, we've already mentioned about the physical effects to a certain extent, but when he takes off the top of the mask and reveals his full face, the visual effects on that are absolutely unbelievable. And they were so doubtful about it. Was it the special effects guy you mentioned earlier? Was it something Boddington?
Rob Boddington.
Rob Boddington. He had like a major falling out with Paul Verhoeven, the director, over this, because he didn't want to. He was like, listen, it's going to look terrible. You can't shoot that in the day because it's not going to look good enough. But Paul Verhoeven stuck to his gun and said, no, I want it to be in broad daylight. I think we can shoot it the right way. That'll look convincing. And you go back and watch it, and it looks fantastic. Yeah. Like how long he must have been in the makeup chair for that is unreal.
They actually, because at that point when Paul Verhoeven got his way and they filmed it, Rob Boddington actually stopped speaking to him. So didn't speak to him for the rest of the filming, for the rest of post-production. It was only at the premiere of the film where they saw it, and it like you say, it's seamless. It looks perfect. Yeah,
really does.
They both like instantly forgave each other at that point. Paul Verhoeven has nothing to be forgiven. Like to forget. Do you know what I mean? Like Paul Verhoeven wasn't wrong. He was right all along.
100%. And it's a weird thing because you go back, one way it looks very cool, but it very much plays into that whole Paul Verhoeven body horror thing because it's not just, there's his face. You can see the skin around the side stretched over the kind of robot underlay kind of thing. It's in its own way. I mean, it's impressive, but it's also, as I say, it is quite disturbing to see that scene. Well, it's not a simple, you can see his face like you might get in the Robocop remake. Even then, there's something quite unnatural and disturbing about it.
Rob Boddington vowed to never work with him after that. And then after seeing the premiere...
Is it Rob Bottington or Rob Bottin? I've got Rob Bottin down, but...
Bottin. I think it is Bottin, but for some reason we said Bottin and we just stuck with it.
And we're sticking with Rob Bottington.
Good old Rob. Good.
Yeah, by the end it'll be like... so anyway, Paddington Bear. Yeah, so he did this, no problem.
He vowed to never work with him again, but he offered him a marmalade sandwich. No.
Of course.
And then after seeing that film, then he signed up on the spot to do Total Recall. I say on the spot. Obviously, when Verhoeven asked him to do Total Recall, he jumped at the chance. And I like
the effects in that film are amazing as well.
And I like the fact they've gone to Total Recall because we completely missed. What was his name last week? Georgie LaChance, was it? Will Wheaton's character from Stand By Me.
Georgie LaChance.
Yeah, his dad is Quato. Quato, from Total Recall. How we missed that last week? I'll never know.
Quaid.
Yeah.
Open your mind. Even to this day, we call if one of the guys has like a especially large spot in his face, we refer to it as a Quato, which I think is suitably gross in fairness. But we'll cover that.
Having a child is another thing because when you got a kid who's small enough, you put him in your shirt and then you film yourself going. Get to the reactor, Queen.
Yeah, just say something like intense and kind of creepy, and we'll do a Quatos. But yeah, we'll cover that in greater detail for sure on the inevitable Total Recall podcast. We'll definitely be doing that at some point.
Yeah.
But I love the scene before as well, like when again, just Clarence just being a shithouse when they show up. And they've both got the same car, and they've got like the giant sniper rifles, and they're just being like, the police have gone on strike at this point. So they're just like, we're just going to blow everything up. And the first thing he does, he shoots the guy's car because he has the audacity of the same car as him. Then they start blowing up the shops. I mean, in fact, like, and when you actually see it, you notice how close they are to the building blowing up.
Yeah.
And Kurtwood Smith, who, we referenced the fact that he plays Clarence Podgate, he actually got paid, unironically, as a stuntman for that day because he was so close to the building when it blew up that his coat caught fire and he got glass in his face.
Him and Ray Weiss both. They both got because Ray Weiss kept making jokes then that every time there was another explosion, he kept trying to be as close as he could to get another payout.
Oh, got to get paid. Yeah. Got to get paid at that point. If it's going to be dangerous, you might as well get that stuntman bonus.
Yeah.
But yeah, when they do show up, then I mean, Yeah, it escalates pretty quickly with Robocop showing up. They've got these giant, let's be honest, they're sniper rifles visually, but really what they are rocket launchers.
Yeah.
I mean, they're just blowing everything up. And obviously, you remember, the character interactions and the use of guns, but really what anyone remembers from that is Ellis's demise. Like, it's all about Alice's demise as one of the most unpleasant ways for a character to go in movie history. To drive your van into a vat of toxic waste.
Yeah.
And to...
Sorry,
and again...
you saying Ellis? Emil.
Emil, sorry, I said Ellis. Emil,
yeah.
I do apologize. God, I'm terrible with names today. When he comes out of the truck then, and his skin is literally melting off. It's not a subtle shot. You see him crawling around, you have close-ups. The horror howl is fucking horrendous.
It's his deterioration as well. His deterioration as he's going through. Because when he comes out of the back of the truck and he's just started melting and he grabs Ray Weiss, and Ray Weiss is like, "Get away from me, man! Get away from me!" And then you see him hobbling. He's a skeleton, and he's a bag of meat at that point. That's just rotten.
Oh, just melting skin.
Yeah.
It's gross.
And as he gets hit by Clarence's car, then he just pops.
Yeah, you see his head, but the effect of it, I haven't gone as far as slowing it down, but it looks so, it's like he just explodes. Like you see the bone coming out, you see the head flying up and hitting the windscreen. It's an unpleasant way to go. But don't get me wrong, Emil, that's great, isn't it? He is like second maybe on the list of total shitbags behind Clarence, obviously. So when he goes in a horrendous way, you don't begrudge it, but man, it's hard to wish that upon anyone. It's pretty grim.
You called those sniper rifles, as you just called them rocket launchers?
Basically, yeah.
Ray Weiss. Why I keep calling him Ray Weiss? Because I can't remember his character name. Have you got his character name?
No, he's one of the few people I didn't have. I've got like the whole major cast except for
Leon.
Leon
Nash. That's it.
Yeah.
When he gets taken out in the crane, and I forgot her name now as well.
Lewis.
When Lewis shot the gun, apparently that was so loud, and the concussion of it actually knocked the people who were filming behind the plexiglass into shot.
Oh my Jesus Christ. And the only person who wouldn't be affected by that, funny enough, is Peter Weller, because supposedly he couldn't hear shit in the Robocop suits. And going back to the warehouse scene, supposedly to get himself in the mood, he was listening to Red Rain by Peter Gabriel. I forgot to mention that earlier.
Stop stealing my facts.
Oh, I do apologize. But I was like, of all the songs to pick to get you in the mood, Red Rain.
So as he's walking around, just taking people out, he's listening to Peter Gabriel.
Jesus Christ. So yeah, he's probably the only person that affected by that. But I love the fact it's almost like quite a childish scene where he's like, Clarence, I gotta look what I did, Clarence, look what I boom, you're fucking dead. And even Clarence then still gets his like horrendous moment where obviously Robocop's like, or Murphy's caught under the rubble. And it's quite nasty the way he stabs him through the chest with the metal pole. And of course, you're like, oh, that's so unpleasant. But it's okay. It's going to get worse when he stabs Clarence in the neck with his giant needle middle finger fuck you stick. And it was just, again, I'm not sure if you get it anymore. What it reminded me of was Blaine. When he first gets hit in Predator, they have a certain way of the squib like shooting onto someone. Yes. So when he stabs him in the neck, the blood goes all over Robocop's chest, and it just totally adds to the scene.
It's not some sort of arterial spray or anything like that. It is chunks of flesh.
It's a glob of blood.
Yeah, that just smack into Murphy.
It's a horrible analogy. It's the difference between spitting on someone and gobbing on someone. This wasn't a spit of blood. This was a gob of blood, just all in one, just big. It was horrible. I don't think I've ever used spitting and gobbing as an analogy for anything before, but there we go. Yep. There's always something new on this podcast.
To episode 21.
Yeah, Jesus Christ. This was after the sex show story from last week, of course. Yeah. But yeah, like even then, of course, he's killed Clarence Boddicker. We're all very happy, but you still have that great cathartic, almost Western style finale where we've already mentioned that Murphy shows up in the OCP building. He takes out Ed 209 or the other Ed 209 immediately without any issue. And then the great scene with Dick Jones. Of course, Dick Jones has his Desert Eagle on the desk, but I love the scene with the old man where he's like, "Dick, you're fired." Thank you. And he just and he shoots him out the window. The only problem with that scene is that when Dick Jones falls out the window, it looks like absolute dog shit. This is 1 year before the greatest building fall in cinema history with Hans Gruber.
Yes.
The Hans Gruber building, like to this day, no building fall, whatever you want to call it, holds a candle to the Hans Gruber scene. And yet this is a stop motion clay animation figure where the arms are apparently 17 foot long on Dick Jones.
The arms always remind me of the arms from Nightmare on Elm Street when Freddy Krueger is chasing, I think it's Nancy down the alleyway.
Down the alleyway.
And he does his accordion arms as he's scraping his...
that's what it looks like. Yeah. Because it's not like you look at it and you're like, man, his arms look a little bit out of proportion. You're like, no, those arms are 17 foot long. It's
not just his arms, because then his head squishes in and elongates.
Yeah, it just looks bad. It's like the stop motion stuff with Ed 209 in its own way, in a kind of Jason and the Argonauts kind of style. Argonauts? What do they say in an American accent? Argonauts. Has a certain charm to it, a kind of 80s hokey charm. Whereas that is the one scene in the film where it just looks like dog shit.
It looked out of it completely.
Yeah, it looked terrible when I watched this film in the late 80s, and it looks even worse now. But it's bad.
We've given Dick a lot of credit during this film. Like, he was all to become the next guy running OCP. Do you know what I mean?
Have given Dick a lot
We've given Dick a lot of credit. I mean, even to the point where he didn't care that Ed 209 was broke, because he'd already had commitments for military contracts. And the parts, like paying for the parts would have just taken OCP to the top. But then as soon as he realizes he's stumped, he becomes that quintessential hostage taker. I want a chopper on the roof. You know, I want $1 million in my account.
Like, he had it planned. He's like, this is what I'm going to say the moment things go south. Yeah. Give me the chopper, give me the money, give me the horse, get me to Cuba immediately. It's like, there's no sense of, oh, what should I say? He's like the terrorist doing the film. He's saying all the same things basically. Yeah. But yeah, he probably thought this day might come. And Ronnie Cox, who plays Dick Jones in this, and it's weird because this is just around the same time he plays a police chief in Beverly Hills Cop.
Yes.
Beverly Hills Cop 2, isn't it?
Well, he's Beverly Hills Cop 1 and 2, isn't he?
Oh, is he in 1 and 2?
Yeah.
And in
2, he gets shot by the alphabet killer.
Yeah. And he's such a likable character. Like, he's a tough guy kind of thing, but he's a likable character, and he has a great relationship, especially in 2, has a great relationship with Murphy, funnily enough. But in this, he's such a douchebag. The only thing I was surprised when I was looking at the characters is that he's still very much alive. Yeah. And that is good, of course. But I assumed when he made this film, he was like 70 years old. I just always assumed that Ronnie Cox in these films in the 80s was super old. But he's only like 50 in this film.
But that goes back to the fact that, as you've already said, you were watching this film when you were, same as me, 10 or 11. Like, 10 or 11, 25-year-olds are old as shit.
Yeah, let alone, like, if you've got grey hair, you're like 70, and that was it.
It's like, Ronnie Cox is so good. Yeah, because Beverly Hills Cop was 84, Beverly Hills Cop 2 was 87, so he did
87, this. Same year as this.
Yeah, so this and Beverly Hills Cop 2 in the same year. His introduction to anyone that was Deliverance. He was one of the 4 guys in Deliverance.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah. Because he was the one who does the dueling banjos. That was Ronnie Cox.
Oh, geez, I didn't even know. Although maybe I did. I have seen Deliverance, but I haven't seen it for like 20 years. Yeah. And it's not a film we'll be doing on this podcast.
Oh God, no. We will not, because there will be lots of squeal like a piggy jokes. And
we can just leave it at that.
Yeah, we'll move forward to that. Yeah.
But for the film, I think that's pretty much covers the film. So, I mean, do you want to head up the facts as a start, and I'll jump in with any I've got afterwards?
Yeah, I'll have to go through because you've stole most of them, but
Yeah, I've stolen a few. Well, I can jump in with a couple here.
I got some here. No? So exactly. It was discovered that when in full Robocop costume, you've already done that one.
Yeah, there we go.
No, the Robocop suit was so hot and heavy that Peter Weller was losing 3 pounds a day from water loss.
Yeah, it's crazy, right?
So it says, right, and eventually an air conditioner was installed in the suit. An air conditioner. They hooked up a fan.
Well, I mean, these 80s suits, I mean, how they haven't killed somebody is absolutely beyond me. Because especially that, like, you see it, like, the layers, the bulk, it must have been horrendous.
Yeah.
It must have been horrendous.
This is fantastic. If this is true, take this with a grain of salt. But if it's true, I love this one. In Sacramento, California, a robbery suspect fled into a darkened movie theater to escape pursuing police. He became so engrossed in the movie playing on screen that he failed to notice the police had evacuated all other patrons from the theater. When the lights flipped on, the stunned man was taken into custody. The reason why I love this, because it says when the lights flipped on. So did they let it get to the end of the film?
I was wondering, it's like, listen, this guy's going away for a long time, but he fucking, like, you must have noticed at some point, it's like, he's not even, we're taking everyone out of the cinema, and he's just sitting there, he doesn't even notice. It's like, dude, he loves this film. I like to think that the police officers went in, they cleared the place out, and they're like, it's just him. It's like, why hasn't he gone anywhere? So they start looking at the screen, and suddenly they're engrossed in the film as well. So everybody, the police, the criminal, the perp, everyone's just sitting there watching Robocop. And, you know, I get it. Robocop's a fucking great movie. Great movie.
Nancy Allen first arrived on set when Paul Verhoeven was shooting the deliberately cheesy sitcom It's Not My Problem. The thing we all know is I'd Buy That for $1 guy.
Yeah.
Allen was initially horrified to think that she had signed on to make a film with an incompetent director.
Oh dear!
Like that's your introduction to this film you're about to.
Well, in fairness, I mean that's your introduction. It's not like Paul Verhoeven had this track record of movies going into this. Like this is the one that put his name on the map, 100%. You know, you think of all the films with when you think of Paul Verhoeven, you think RoboCop, you think Total Recall, Basic Instinct, Showgirls, Starship Troopers, Hollow Man, obviously Benedetto. Now, all those films they start with RoboCop.
Yeah.
You know, and he has a great run after that, like going into the mid-90s, arguably not including Showgirls, depends how you feel about that. But yeah, if you're going into this, you're like, man, what am I getting myself fucking into? This is a film about a robot cop. This fucking Paul Verhoeven guy seems like a weirdo. What the fuck have I signed up for? Crazy.
This one I love as well. So we've already said about the hostage scene in the mayor's office. So I didn't want to actually go into it because I knew I had this fact. So I didn't. So as Robocop is walking towards the room where the former councilman is holding the mayor hostage, the infrared heat vision mode was actually executed using fluorescent body paint on the naked actors and a black light. Paul Verhoeven said he thought this technique would be cheaper than getting an actual infrared spectrometer camera. So he thought, I don't want to pay to get a proper camera. So all of you strip down, I'm going to paint you with fluorescent paint. So you're all just basically stood there naked.
The effect is pretty, it looks pretty cool on screen. And you would never guess they're naked, but it looks the part for sure.
Concerned that various police forces would object to the scene of the title character throwing Clarence Boddicker through glass while reading his rights, the producers had preliminary screenings for an audience of police officers. It turns out that they were delighted at the sight of the hero getting tough with a wanted murderer in a way that they could not.
Oh, yeah, I bet you that is super cathartic as a cop. Because he's just like, you usually can't do that, but he's such a douchebag. And of course, you know, the worst thing in the world, he's a cop killer.
Yeah.
So it's like, throw him through and if ever you're not going to feel bad about a character getting thrown through a window, it's fucking Clarence Boddicker, dude. Yeah. He's the worst. He's the worst.
So we've mentioned the gun a few times, and we mentioned that it was going to be a Desert Eagle, and you have already said it was a Beretta. So it was a Beretta automatic pistol to which a compensator and decorative dressing was added to increase the size.
Decorative dressing. So nice, some garnish, some gun garnish, please.
The shootout at the cocaine factory was not originally intended to be so fast-paced. The automatic guns used in the scene kept malfunctioning during filming. Most camera shots did not provide more than 3 seconds of usable footage because most guns were usually jammed by that time. This necessitated quick cuts during editing, which proved to be advantageous for the scene.
Oh, it's a great scene. Awesome. if by accident or by design, the final product is exceptional, so it's fine.
Because the hands of the Robocop suit were made of foam rubber, the car keys would keep bouncing off Peter Weller's hand every time he attempted to catch it. The production took up to 50 takes, an entire day's worth of filming before finally getting the shot right. Can you imagine just spending the whole day watching a guy not catch a set of keys?
Yeah, so when you put it like that, it's like, I spent the whole day watching a dude not catch keys. It was fucking rough, dude. And the thing is, the final shot is cool. Like when he, he doesn't look, it's, catching the keys in front of the chief, the sergeant, sorry. But man, 50 shot. I can only assume it's like by the time you get to like the 15th take, you're like, dude, we've already got 15 takes in the bag. We have to get the shot now. I can't not get the shot. And the further it goes, the more, you're like, we're all in now. It's like, no one's going home. Just be clear. No one's going home until Peter decides to catch these fucking keys. And I know the whole thing was because of the gloves being foamy. But at the end of the day, it's catching a fucking. You can just
imagine, like you get to the couple, and because he says thank you when he gets the keys in his iconic robotic voice, thank you, catches the keys. Yeah. So you can imagine him going, thank you, bounces off, and then he goes, fuck or shit. But then when he finally does it, what did they say, 50 times or 50 plus times? I can imagine him catching the keys, waiting for cut, and then going, yes!
Yeah, in the full Robocop suit, and everyone cheers, like, motherfucker, God, told you I can do it. I fucking told you I could catch those keys.
If he's not fist pumping at that time.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. Wouldn't you love to see a deleted scene of, like, I don't want to see the extended scene of Murphy getting tortured. What I really want to see is the Robocop fist pump when he finally catches a pair of keys on the 50th goddamn try. That's what I want to see.
So I did this one for you. The special effects were generated with a Commodore Amiga computer.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
I really enjoyed this one. Kurtwood Smith originally auditioned for the role of Dick Jones, and when he first learned that he had been cast, he thought that was the role he had gotten. Not until later.
And he would have, just be clear, sorry to butt in, he would have made a great Dick Jones.
Dick Jones, oh yeah, absolutely.
Great.
Not until later did he found out that he would be playing Clarence Boddicker. Later still, he discovered the reason. Being Dutch, director Paul Verhoeven had grown up near the Holocaust and thought that when wearing glasses, Smith resembled Heinrich Himmler. Smith apparently agreed with the idea, stating that a bigger, more menacing villain would come across as someone who could merely be outsmarted, while his character's glasses made him look smarter and therefore more of a threat.
Yeah, well, that's what they needed. There was no point in having a big, bulky, giant bad guy because physically he can't match up against Robocop.
Yeah.
So it makes sense. The only time that's ever worked the other way around is like, you could arguably say that Schwarzenegger doesn't need to be that big in Predator because he's fighting a Predator who's just bigger than him. Yeah. But there are extenuating circumstances there because of, he's part of the big muscle gang or whatever the fuck you want to call him. But yeah, in this, it totally makes sense for Clarence Boddicker to be, like you said, not weedy, but he looks, and it is a cliche, but he's got the big head, he wears the glasses, he's a complete asshole, but he does look intelligent.
And he looks calculating, doesn't he? It's like he's not doing anything.
Calculating, that's the word. Yeah. He does look calculating.
Only two more for me now, because I realise I've dragged these on a bit.
Sorry?
Edward Neumeier came up with the idea for Robocop after he'd helped out on the set of Blade Runner, which was about cops hunting robots that looked like humans in the future. Intrigued with this, he thought what would happen if you had a cop who was a robot hunting criminals. So it took him a while then, because that was 1982. So, was it 4 or 5 years? Then he was writing the script for Robocop.
Oh yeah, 4 years.
Because it would have been filmed. Yeah, and then lastly, I've already briefly touched on this. When Lewis fires the Cobra assault cannon during the final shootout at the Foundry, the muzzle flash and blast are so powerful that they knock the Lexan screen protecting the film crew and equipment off its mounting and into shot.
Amazing. Those guns are amazing, especially when Emil picks up, because he's so small, Emil, and when he picks up that gun, it just looks especially ridiculous. But they're fantastic.
Yeah.
Any more?
No, that's it for me, mate. Unless you got any.
I've just got a few more. Robocop sold fried chicken and noodles in Korea. The advert actually uses music from City Slickers for some reason. I have no fucking idea why, but I'm gonna put it on our Facebook page because you can find the the adverts online, and they're amazing.
I was gonna cover that on legacy. That felt like a legacy thing for me.
Oh, I do apologize. I've got down in fact. Yeah, it probably is more legacy than facts. But anyway, so fried chicken and noodles in Korea being sold by Robocop in the 80s is fantastic. The original theatrical trailer for this film actually uses, and you can go back and watch it, actually uses the theme tune, or one of the theme tunes from Terminator, bizarrely.
Yeah.
And it was because Orion, who distributed this film, also distributed Terminator. And they're like, well, it's another robot. And as a stand-in, we're just going to use the Terminator music. So it's bizarre watching a Robocop trailer with the Terminator soundtrack. It's very, especially given their crossover in wider medium, video games, comics, and stuff down the line. They obviously didn't know it at the time. But yeah, another link between the two films. Schwarzenegger was actually considered for the role of Murphy at one point, but he was considered too big because, they were like in the suit. You put that suit on top of Schwarzenegger and they thought he looked like the Michelin Man. It's like, yes, it would have been ridiculous. So they picked the right guy there. Supposedly the, oft discussed Murphy death scene from earlier in the film was cut down 8 separate times to take the film from an X rating to an R rating. So basically the scene that you're seeing on the Blu-ray DVD now, it wasn't like that in the cinema. It was nasty, but it wasn't nearly as nasty. You're seeing the full X-rated version of the film now. But to get the budget R rating in US cinemas, it had to be cut 8 separate times, which is just ridiculous. But it is a horrible scene. Peter Weller actually had mime lessons to help him emote because
they wanted to be more serpentine, but they realized he couldn't be serpentine with that suit on, so he had to do.
Yeah, and obviously most of his face is covered, and even his mouth. And Peter Weller actually has a great mouth, and we'll get to this in a minute. Well, no, he does, because it's one of those underrated. I'm not sure if it's a skill, but one of the reasons he might have been picked, it was the same with Michael Keaton. You could make an argument for Michael Keaton maybe not looking quite right as Bruce Wayne without the makeup on, but when he had the bat suit on, he had a great mouth. Like it just looked right. And Peter Weller.
All right.
No. Right. You want proof of this? All you have to do is take a look at Robert John Burke in Robocop 3.
Yes.
He replaces Peter Weller, and he doesn't look right. It doesn't look right because he doesn't have a great mouth.
But it wasn't like the guy that did the TV shows as well was awful. Probably because
terrible. Or even those bullshit adverts which have been released recently. What are they?
Direct Line.
Direct Line, yeah. The guy who, the suit looks the part, but the guy's mouth, he doesn't have a great mouth. Not like Peter Weller. Peter Weller has a great mouth. Michael Keaton has a great mouth. And if you're going to play Batman or you're going to play Robocop, you need to have a great mouth. It's just one of those things. It's a ridiculous thing to say, but it's absolutely essential. And obviously the fact his mouth, he doesn't actually, maybe later in the film once he takes off the mask and gets a little bit more emotive, as you say, he kind of dials into his humanity. But most of his acting is physical. It's the way he moves, that way where his body moves, then his head moves. Yeah. The warehouse scene is a great example, the way he shoots. He doesn't just throw his hand up. The way he moves is like slowly balletic, and he's shooting under his arm. It's kind of slow, but very deliberate. It's quite bizarre. TJ Laser, the TV show, which is responsible for him doing the spinny gun thing. That is a nod to William Shatner's TJ Hooker. I had no idea, but it seems quite obvious now. Yeah. And one of the last ones, and really had to pause it to find the proof of this, but Robocop is credited, again, no pun considering where I'm going with this, as having one of the first Easter eggs, because in the credits, there we go, there's the pun, there's a distribution law notice right at the end of the credits. So, right as you get past all the names, just as it's kind of fading out, and it says, any illegal duplication is punishable prosecution by enforcement droids. It's like, it's not particularly funny, it's not particularly clever, but it's a subtle little Easter egg right at the end of the credits, and supposedly it was one of the first examples. So, yeah, that's it for me for facts. Let's finally move on.
Yeah, I didn't bring it. I forgot to bring this up whilst we were talking about the film. Did you catch when you had the news station and they were doing the news, and then the president was floating about on the space station? Did you catch the name of the space station?
No.
The Star Wars Space Center.
Was it really?
Yeah.
Not even. Well, they did use. Didn't Reagan use Star Wars for their missile system?
Yeah, I think so.
So maybe it's just a reference to that. So maybe it is like bang on the nose. Maybe it's not even an Easter egg. It's just a reference to the real world. Unbelievable.
All right. So let's move on to Legacy then.
Yeah, cool. Well, I mean, this film's got a ton of legacy, obviously.
Yeah.
Like Aliens and Predator before it, there's a huge amount of comics, tons of comics, including numerous crossovers with
what
Aliens
I will say is we might have
and Terminator.
We might have to cut the conversation, as we're in legacy, we're going to have to cut the conversation about the remake short, because I feel like we could go on about that remake for a while.
Yeah, we won't go on for ages. We'll just say, I'm going to go ahead. Well, let's deal with it now quickly. I disagree. I don't think it's a great film. It's lacking the social satire. There's satire in it, but it's not nearly as smart as it is in the 87 original. It lacks the violence, obviously, that Paul Verhoeven, made Robocop famous for.
It's just, but it's watered down. It's tripe. It's shit.
I don't think it's tripe. So I really
story issue. I mean, you're just addicted to Michael Keaton's great mouth in that film.
Well, one thing, it has a great cast. It's got Michael Keaton, it's got Gary Oldman, it's got Samuel L. Jackson. Yeah, and most importantly, and I think that Joel Kinnaman,
not Joel Edgerton, Joel Kinnaman. He's great in it.
He's great.
He's great.
And I think
it's just
maybe that's what it's. I don't think it's. I think it's perfectly serviceable. I think it's a perfectly decent 3-star movie. It's not as great as the original. I think it's a 3-star film. Right. If you look at the other films around the time they got remade, the Total Recall remake, terrible. The Nightmare on Elm Street remake, terrible. I think this was maybe the most successful of the bunch of that era, of the kind of late or 2010s-ish remakes. I thought they did the suit looked cool. The fact that they had the original nod to it and then they made it black. They were wise enough to put him on a bike because it doesn't fit into a fucking car. And I completely agree with you that it is watered down. But I think it's a competently made and quite enjoyable film. And unlike a lot of people, I thought that scene where has it revealed that he still has his heart, it's just his hand in his head. Some people found that funny. I found that quite disturbing. Like, if you take it from an empathetic perspective, because obviously, unlike Robocop in this, he's much more self-aware of who he is. And when he sees himself and it's just a hand and his heart and nothing else, you can see, and Joel Kinnaman, I think, sells it really well. He's like, never show me that again. Like, he's so disturbed by it. And I remember things like, oh my, I can't imagine what that would be like to see that.
I think they having the family still around to see Robocop was probably a good choice, because it would have been nice to see how Peter Weller.
Well, it's a different film, isn't it?
It would be nice to see how once he gets his humanity back, how that works with his.
Well, instead, they just had the underlying sexual tension between him and Lewis instead. Even when he was married, there was still that sense like, dude, he's cheating on his wife. Like, if he had survived that day, he was fucking Lewis the next day, guaranteed.
Look, I can't go in. I can't be as eloquent as you are at talking about. All I can say
fucking his partner.
No, going on. Okay, because I don't have as much to back it up as White. But it's just the storyline isn't there. The acting is, aside from a couple of good ones, Joel Kinnaman for a start, Michael Keaton loving what he's doing, and Samuel L. Jackson.
He's quite fun, isn't it?
Yeah. The rest of it is just, it's phoned in. The violence turned down, and Robocop needs that satire violence. That's satirical violence. Jesus Christ, big words are attacking.
That was their biggest issue, I think. Is I get they were trying to make a slightly more heartfelt movie than the original, but you need the violence. It's part, and that's the same thing that happened with the sequel. Put this way, whatever differences of opinion we might have on RoboCop 2014, and let's be clear, I don't think it's a classic. It's so much better than the direct sequels. RoboCop 2 is bad. It's bad. It's an unpleasant film, but it still has the original cast. It still has that violence inherent to the movies, but it's a bad film. RoboCop 3 with Robert John Burke taking on the role, with the film which essentially ended Orion, bankrupted them, is an absolute. I mean, it's so bad. And I mean, you talk about movies jumping the shark. As soon as you add a jetpack to RoboCop, and they did the same thing when they added a jetpack to Optimus Prime in Transformers. It's like, oh, well, that's the end of that. It's done. It's fucking done. It is the modern day equivalent of jumping the shark. Is adding the jump pack.
It was the jetpack, and it was the weird arm cannon flamethrower thing.
Oh, terrible. Again, it felt at that point they were thinking more about toys and video games than they were about the movie itself, you know? And that is the reason, I mean, you talk about legacy, there was another ill-advised animated adaptation of an R-rated movie. It had one season, like most of these things, like Beetlejuice and Rambo and all these super violent 80s films, which got cartoons in the late 80s, early 90s, which was quite bizarre. But that's what it felt like they were gearing towards. And you can actually see it in the video, like, you know, there were obviously a lot of video games, and we'll get to that in a minute. But yeah, Robocop 3, by that point, they had completely lost the essence of what the character, the tone, everything was about, and that was that really was the death.
You then had a Canadian TV show back in '94. Then Richard Eden was Robocop, and that took place like 4 or 5 years after the original film. So that was meant to be like a follow-on.
Bad too.
Sorry,
that was bad.
Yeah. Well, none of these are good. You had Alpha Commando. Robocop Alpha Commando, set in 2030 and follows on from the previous animated series.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, and then this is the one that you had Prime Directives, Robocop Prime Directives, Canadian TV miniseries released in 2001. And what they've done, they took the miniseries and they made 4 feature-length episodes out of them. So you had Dark Justice, Meltdown, Resurrection, and Crash. But they added a new Robocop. Maurice Dean Wint as Commander John T. Cable in a couple of these made-for-TV films. Then he died, and he became Robo Cable.
Fantastic. And of course, I mean, terrible. Just terrible. And it's such a sad state of affairs that for so many of these films that we love from the 80s, where the characters become iconic, is that they eventually and invariably end up getting their legacy is dragged through the mud. But it's not all bad. I mean, if you look at video games, I mean, we'll do the video games. Is that cool if we jump into video games?
Go for it. Yeah. I'm done. Yeah.
I mean, there is a new video game coming out, funny enough, in 2023. It was very recently announced. And I mean, it's a first-person Robocop game. You look at the trailer, it's very much a mood piece. It ticks all the boxes, but it's being developed by a team called Teon. And the thing is, they also directed the Rambo game for 360 and most recently Terminator Resistance. And if you take Terminator Resistance, another first-person shooter based on, obviously, a famous 80s franchise, is that they've captured the tone and the look. Like, it ticks all the boxes, kind of like Aliens versus Predator Requiem did. But like that film, it's also an absolute piece of shit. It's janky, it's messy. Yeah. I think some people have got like a bit of a soft spot for it, but it's not a great game. And as much as I want Robocop Rogue City to be a fantastic game, to be the Robocop game of my dreams, I'm not going to hold out hope. I mean,
the fact it's following on from the events of Robocop 3.
Yeah, which is a weird choice, but I guess, you know, you can kind of sweep that under the rug in its own way. But there have been some good games, though. The original arcade game from Data East in '88 still looks great, still plays fantastically. There are a bunch of home ports on the NES, the Spectrum, the Commodore 64, all the kind of home consoles at the time. Yeah. They weren't really up to much, but the arcade game in particular was really good.
My favorite game was Robocop versus Terminator.
Yeah, that was another great one. Well, specifically the Genesis version was the best one. Yeah. And that's the one people remember, kind of like Aladdin. There were 2 different versions of Aladdin, but everyone remembers the Mega Drive version. And it's the same with this. Like, the SNES port was fine, but if you want to play Robocop versus Terminator, which is, you know, how old were we when that came out in 94? We were 12. Yeah. And you're just like, dude, there's a Terminator versus Robocop game. You're like, yeah, I'm fucking in for this, 100%. And if you want to know who would win the fight between Robocop and the Terminator, you look at that game, it's Robocop, because you're Robocop and you literally fight Skynet. So yeah, he's pretty badass. The other one I picked out as a good one, bizarrely, is actually Robocop 3. So as bad as the movie was, there was like 2 different versions of this game. There was the side-scrolling SNES Mega Drive version, but then on the Amiga and the Atari ST, the kind of more powerful home computers at the time, there was it was quite innovative at this time because it used a lot of 3D animation. And of course, it doesn't look great today, and a lot of early 3D does has aged a lot worse than, say, those 16-bit side-scrolling versions. But at the time, at least, it was a pretty innovative take on the character. And if you combine it with the kind of, the 16-bit, more traditional side-scrolling versions, it's like, yeah, it was a pretty decent port for what was an absolute dogshit film. So even though there hasn't been a decent Robocop game for a very long time, at least in and around the time it was released, Robocop 1, 2, and 3, there were some decent games for sure.
Yeah. So what kind of Robocop game would you want to see then?
Well, the thing is, I probably want what is being made. That sounds right. I'm quite okay with the idea that it's following on from Robocop 3, that they're like, all right, we're just going to take it all as canon. This is just going to be a new story. We don't really have to worry about what's happened before. This is just Murphy. It's going to be Peter Weller Murphy, you would assume, certainly visually anyway. I'd love to see him back doing the role, but I mean, his voice is pretty croaky now. Although he should have been in more stuff. Let's just put that out there. But I mean, I basically want that game, but just arguably from a better developer.
Yeah.
That's about it. How about you?
Well, I just thought of a fact I missed, but I'll get that in a second. I can't believe I missed this fact. But I just, like, a first-person one I think I want to see. And as much as these games pain me, a Treyarch or Activision version, because
no, 100%.
They do, like, I mean, the fact that CODs don't change, Call of Duty doesn't change now from the original Modern Warfare to whatever we're on now, Call of Duty Future War, whatever it is. I mean, I've stopped playing.
Black Ops 4, I think the most recent is.
But if you had that as a Robocop...
Or Cold War.
Yeah.
Call of Duty, Black Ops 4, Cold War. Yeah, Jesus Christ.
Seriously.
Ridiculous. Yeah, I think it is. I think it is.
Okay. Anyway, I wouldn't mind seeing a Treyarch or Activision version of a first-person Robocop. Because to me, you don't need to see Robocop moving a third-person style. You can feel it the way...
the audio and stuff. And
yeah. So, no, and it doesn't... just multiplayer. Just make it multiplayer where one of you is Robocop, hunting people in old Detroit. And the rest of the players are...
I don't need that. There's enough of it. Like, they did it with Predator hunting ground, that 4 versus 1.
Okay.
It sounds like a good idea on paper. I agree with you. I just want a narrative-led first-person shooter starring Robocop. I think that's a great job. I mean, if we're really going to push the boat out, I would love to see Bungie do it.
Yeah.
If we're talking Dream World kind of thing, you think kind of Halo-style mechanics, a specific kind of like unique weapons. They all feel like very different. They're world building. Yeah, I'd love to see Bungie or as you say, Treyarch making a Robocop game. But sadly, I fear we're going to have to just deal with Teon and just keep our fingers crossed and hope for the best. So we'll see how that works out. Sorry, just before we go back to facts.
Yeah.
So we can wrap up, we do usually do a section on the soundtrack. I actually think the score for this film is fantastic.
It is great.
It's composed by Balas Polidoris. Apologies again if I got the name wrong. But his use of his combination of orchestral and synthesized music for the score to capture that theme of like man versus machine, I think is super successful in this film. It
also gives you that feel of foreboding and that feel that it is like a world that's on the brink of collapse, kind of. It doesn't give you. It doesn't put joy into you, does it? It gives you that feeling that something bad is coming around the corner. So I really like that soundtrack.
I think he gets the scale of the mood in the film as well. Like some of it, is like you think of the music that's playing when he goes back to his old house. It really captures that kind of like underlying melancholy tone of the character where he's struggling. Like he can't remember his past, but he just feels that something's wrong. But then also, when Robocop kind of storms into a building, it's almost quite triumphant. Bum, 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 bum. And it's just like, it gets the fact that sometimes this film is vaguely ridiculous and it is about a Robocop. But it also captures the sense that this film does have emotional depth underneath it, and again, you can watch it in different ways. You can just tune in for the ultraviolence, for Robocop being badass. Yeah. But as I said, there is that emotional undertone to the film and to the character, which again, I think is captured beautifully by the score. Sorry.
Totally agree.
Go for it.
I only want to say, because I can't believe that I missed this fact. I mean, if you go back through some of the episodes we've already done, I've mentioned this film many times before. Peter Welland was chosen entirely due to his portrayal of Buckaroo Banzai.
Fantastic. And it's such a shame because when you think of Peter Weller, you think of this and Buckaroo Banzai, and obviously he's had a long career after this, but he, especially that opening sequence when he rolls up in the police station, and as I said, he's got the shirt, the hair, that's winning smile, great mouth, as I already mentioned, and he's just like, why didn't he become a movie star? And honestly, the next thing I can think of when I think of Peter Weller is Star Trek Into Darkness, and again, I think he's great in that film. I think he's really good. I'm like, why wasn't he in more stuff, man?
He has completely made a name for himself in TV directing.
No, and like you said, he does have a career. It's just
at this moment, like he has directed some of the best episodes of Sons of Anarchy, Burn Notice with Bruce Campbell. He's done loads of TV directing. So he has made a career, but.
Oh no! Look, just be clear. I'm not shitting on his. Like he's had a great career. I think it's great. Yeah. But my point is, when he rocks up in this film, he looks like a movie star. In Buckaroo Banzai, he feels like a movie star, and you're just like. And I haven't even seen Buckaroo Banzai. I've just seen like I've watched so many clips of Buckaroo Banzai now without ever having seen the film. But he looks the part in that film. But as I said, specifically, even he's only Murphy in the human sense for a short period, but he totally has an impact. And it's just like, I just feel like there's another world where Peter Weller becomes a massive leading man. Not a giant leading man, like in the literal sense. I don't think he grows up to be 8 foot tall, but you know what I mean? I just think there's a sliding doors moment where he becomes a movie star rather than a great director, In
another world, there's prime part out there for him other than Robocop,
It's a bit of a shame, but maybe Robocop 2 ruined it for him.
All right, so we have so bled Robocop dry at this point.
We really have.
We really have. Yeah, it's starting to get dark now. So I guess before we move on to your choice for next week, which I'm looking forward to see what you're going to choose, let's do the score and recommend, and then we'll move on.
Okay, quickly for me. I mean, obviously, based on what you've already heard, would I recommend it? 100%. It feels like an 80s movie, but I think it totally stands the test of time. As we mentioned, there's a few issues. Like, you've just got to kind of gloss over the stop motion fights here and there. But for the most part, this film still looks great. The performances are fantastic. There's nothing quite like it, as proved by the fact that they've tried to remake it. But I don't think you can... as much as the concept great, as much as the screenplay is great, a big part of it is the performance of Peter Weller, and of course the direction by Paul Verhoeven, which I think is the secret sauce for this film. So rate it. I'm going to give it 4. Like, if I'm watching it today, I'm going to say 4 stars out of 5, but absolutely recommend it, and it's knocking on the door of a 5. But I'll say 4 stars, and yes, I
would recommend it. It feels timeless. It doesn't feel like it's an 80s film. Do you know what I mean? It feels like this film is set at any point. Even to the fact, we've mentioned the satire a lot, and I appreciate what you said, like the stop motion stuff and all that, but that could even be thrown in as satire, that they've done it that way. Do you know? So even if you're so even if you're watching this film not knowing it was filmed in the 80s, you probably wouldn't know when it was filmed. It's done really well in that regard.
No, it's a strange one because it feels quintessentially 80s, because it's impossible to remove it from the 80s, because when you think Robocop, you think 80s. As a pop culture icon, it's up there. Like, if you saw like if someone was doing like a poster of 80s stuff, Robocop's going to be on there. He'll be next to Predator. He'll be next to Alien. He'll be next to the Terminator. It's just an 80s like pop culture icon. But I agree with you. The film itself doesn't necessarily feel like an 80s film. Like, Detroit doesn't look 80s. No. OCP doesn't look, because again, it's that near future thing. So it does have that weird timelessness. Or you could just think that it's set in a kind of, wait, is this next door to the Gremlins 2 building? Very strange, but yeah.
And so would recommend it to others, and agree. It is a 4-star film, but it is a high 4-star film. It's
strong 4.
Yeah,
a 4.5, you might say.
A 4.5, you might say, or a 4.75 if we're
go fuck yourself. So 4 stars, agreed across the board. Go and watch it. Tell your friends, whatever. In terms of next week, I'm going to pick our first animated film, and one we've actually already referenced in this episode, 1988's Akira, one of the most important films of my youth, without question. I won't go into the details now. All I'll say is it's on Netflix, so it's easy to pick up. I assume pretty much everyone's got Netflix at this point. And jumping to the end of next week's episode, it totally holds up. It really is a masterpiece of Japanese animation. It introduced the Western world to manga and Japanese animation in a way that obviously some manga had kind of snuck over in the past, but this was the big bang for Japanese animation over in the West. And there's a reason for it, because this film is something special.
Which is interesting you say that, because I've never seen it.
I am going to be really interested.
I am really interested because I've never seen Akira, but I have seen
crazy.
But Fist of the North Star, Ninja Scroll, Guyver, Ghost in the Shell. Like, I've seen all of these animes, but like I'm an anime fan, but for some reason I've never seen Akira. So
I find that so like when I hear that, it's like someone saying to me, it's like, oh, I saw Godfather Part 3. Didn't see the other two? No, I just saw three. What the fuck? Like, how you, like, don't get me wrong, there are some classics there, but those are the films, and I've seen them all. They're the films you watch after you've seen fucking Akira. It's bizarre. But we'll get to it next week. So yeah, it's on Netflix. Akira, absolute classic. Please watch it. Please join us next week. And as usual, thanks for listening. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, look forward to it. Thanks a lot.
Oh yeah, and before I forget, because I always forget, here's Rob telling you where you can actually find us.
Yeah, so we're currently on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter under Hey You Guys 80s, or at Hey You Guys 80s. And we're also on email at heyyouguys80s@gmail.com. Please feel free to drop us any emails, any recommendations, or any reviews you have. But whilst we're on about that, wherever you get your podcasts, please also smash the subscribe button. Yes, I said smash.
It's fine. Don't worry about it. It's fine.
Leave us a review. And leave us some 5-star ratings as well, but make sure they're 5-star ratings.
Yeah. We're not interested in 1 star, 5 star. If it's not going to be 5 star, don't go smashing anything. Just leave your opinion to yourself. 5-star ratings only. But yeah, if you could do that, we'd really appreciate it. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. See you next week.
Hey,